Hello everyone, it's time to go over the second half of kits. Let's see if Emberz can do better, and I'll be ranking them on a list just like I did last time. There'll be weapons for reference of what each tier is, and without any further ado, subscribe if you enjoy it, and let's get started with the Glamour Splatter shot. This comes with Burst Bomb and a 190 Kraken Royale. Originally, I wasn't sure about this weapon seeing too much use outside of Rainmaker, where Kraken is very strong due to the Zuka kit being much better. However, being 20 points cheaper and having a Burst Bomb gives it a lot of reasons to be used. Personally, I do like that this shot really does lean into a much more aggressive playstyle than either of the other two. It feels very different to play, and that's personally something that you really want to get from these kind of third kits. In terms of how it'll work in competitive though, I'm a bit unsure. Even though the Burst Bomb shot just isn't the best fighting weapon, but it does definitely have a lot of potential in a mode like Rainmaker where Kraken is a bit stronger. Still though, given its power in other modes and Burst Bomb potential, I think I'll give this an A. The Gleams Blaster is up next, and this one is a bit tough to talk about. Now that we've gotten a little bit of time with the beacon, I can say that it's okay. To me, I see this as you might be able to give some jumps to yourself or your teammates. However, when you're actually in a combat, you basically have no sub. If you're fighting players who are in your range value, that's not a big deal, but if you're fighting mid-range weapons, which kind of is something you're doing a lot in this game, it is definitely a problem. Crab Tank can definitely help make up with this when you have it, but that's when you have it and you don't get a whole lot of it. In addition to that, I think Crab's positioning can clash with blasters a lot, particularly if it's up close, and I think this would have served better on one of the longer range blasters. In general, the kit is just very misplaced for this weapon. I think it would have been very strong on more defensive or longer range options, but not something like this. It's still a very solid main, sub, and special in general though, so I guess I'll put this into B tier. I think that Vanilla Blaster is just a little bit better. The Colors Aerospray is up next with Burst Bomb and Splatter color screen. Burst Bomb definitely helps Aerospray's fighting capabilities, but I think it's pretty much all ruined by the screen. Even if you do absolutely have a comp that wants to have a screen in it, I think there are just better options, such as using 52 Deco for extra fighting power, or even something like Tri-Slosher if you want another weapon that can shark in it. The output of screen weapons just isn't that much of a problem, let alone enough of one to run something like Aerospray, and the synergy with Aerospray and screen is pretty pathetic. Personally, I'm gonna put this in E tier. It's barely making that because of its Burst Bomb, but I doubt we will ever see this in competitive play. The Claws 96 Gal has Line Marker and Tacticooler. This is a 190p cooler, which is very important given the output on short-range weapons has to make up for the risk factor associated with using one of them over a longer-ranged cooler weapon. There are a few problems with this to me. 96 as a weapon does not paint under itself until 5 shots. Normally when you have something like a wall covering for you, this isn't as big a deal, but when you have a line marker that you really don't want to have to waste to paint under yourself and a Tacticooler that doesn't do it at all, there were a lot more times I found myself getting caught in enemy ink and not being able to move or having to shoot below myself to move out of the way. In addition to that, while Line Marker does have a solid combo that even works against opponents with 1 sub of bomb defense, it unfortunately still doesn't really help too much with its supportive capabilities and takes up a good bit of your ink tank, meaning you'll have less paint output, which again, very important given you're getting a Tacticooler. In general, 96 is a main weapon that's a little bit awkward to slot with the right comp since it tends to be a bit more selfish. This is one that's clearly trying to make it a bit more of a team weapon, but I'm unsure how well it could work. Options I see being good with it are stuff like Mint and Dreadringer that do enough damage to combo with it. So I see some potential with this weapon, but I'm still a little bit unsure as to what you can run. I'm gonna put this in A tier alongside NZAP. I think the main weapon's a little bit better, but the kit and main weapon are just a lot more picky. Next up is the Suzie Dreadringer. Yes, I'm stealing that name from Almi. I just like the kit. I'm a Deltarune fan right now, so we're going with it. Somehow I ended up scoring and getting the Crab Tank that I wanted, and Crab with it is where I draw a lot of the positives. You can get plenty of the special, it combos amazingly with the main weapon, and it allows it to slot in significantly more team comps than the vanilla one does. The main question for this kit is it worth having it despite having a curling bomb instead of the much better suction bomb? And I would say for the most part, yes. There may be a few situations in which you'd want the bomb, and not having it definitely does suck some of the time, but for the most part, the special is just a lot better. If I had to be nitpicky, and I'm gonna be nitpicky given it's a weapon of mine, I think that curling bomb does detract from the interactivity of the weapon a bit. A lot of the good weapon builds for this seem to be just stacking as much charge up as possible in place of the special power. And I think the biggest symptom of that is that you don't really have a sub-weapon worth investing into, and the main just doesn't really need that much, which is a good thing to be clear. Still though, there's only so much I can say when this really does answer all of the problems I had with the first kit, and again, if you wanted a more aggressive kit and a bomb, it still does exist, so the flexibility between the two might make it just fine. Given the uncertainty of the meta right now, I'm not sure what supports are even going to be in X tier, so I'm going to give it an S+. Next up is the Hoofs Dually Squelchers, or honestly, everyone's going to call them the Zebra Dually Squelchers, or ZDS instead, because It's just a bit easier. I did hear 3DS as a name for them, which I do also like. However, now that we're done talking about the looks, the positives of the weapon pretty much end here. Sensor for it is fine, but it doesn't really help make up for the damage problems that have become a big factor for it in this game, and splatter color screen is just sad. This, next to Super Chump, is the second special in a row now where it doesn't combo with it because it does 28 instead of 30 damage. I also just find it extremely redundant in terms of the options for this weapon to give it 3 specials that are basically you just throw something out and it exists on the map for a little bit. It means the kits just don't really feel as distinct from each other as they probably should, and that's really the thing I dislike most about this. At the end of the day, it's still a dually Squatcher and there's only so low I can rate it. However, all that being said, there's one redeeming quality of this kit, which is that dually Squatcher is very commonly paired with Roller, which does want splatter color screen. That, along with the fact that dually Squatcher is good even with other mediocre kits, means I think I'm actually going to end up placing this into A tier. Pick it if you have a Roller on your team, I guess. Stickers, Splatana Stamper has Auto Bomb and Booyah Bomb. It's 190p, which is obviously a positive with the more consistent special and a bomb you can use more easily. However, compared to its other 2 kits, you have even less combo potential than you do before. For me, I feel like this is the thing you pick mostly on tower control or bad Zipcaster maps. However, despite having less combo routes than the other 2 swords, the much cheaper and recently buffed 190p Booyah gives it a lot more consistency and special output. But of course, it's still Stamper with a really good kit, so how different can it honestly be? I'm gonna put this into S+ tier though. I don't think it's at the same level as Vanilla Stamper, but it is certainly close. Torrent's Hydrosplink is about everything I thought it could be. Sprinkler and Big Bubbler has definitely worked out to have some insane synergy at helping to protect the main weapon, set it up, and get a lot of specials. Big Bubbler finally gives this weapon a real answer to the problem of dealing with longer range weapons and displacement so frequently. As long as you're able to get into a good position, you actually have the method to be able to hold it down. That said, I still don't know if we'll see a whole lot of competitive use for it, but this is probably going to be my boldest placement of the list, putting the Hydrosplink into B tier. I legitimately believe in its potential, especially in tower control, and it's incredibly underrated now that it has a kit that finally makes up for its main problems. Up next is the Patterns Undercover Umbrella, which comes with Curling Bomb and Killer Whale 5.1. Honestly, in practice, either of these options I don't mind too much. Curling Bomb's mobility is helpful for getting an angle with Brella, and Killer Whale can make up for the damage a little bit, but together it's still wholly mediocre at absolute best. The damage of Undercover just isn't high enough to work with Killer Whale as much as it should be. If it did like 45 or 48 damage instead, to be much closer to 100 with 2 shots, I could definitely see it. And again, Curling Bomb is the same problem. The mobility is nice, but once I get to the position I'm in, I can't really do anything because I don't have the damage output. Honestly, this is a kit that I could actually see being decent if the weapon dealt damage. But with that problem in place, I'm going to put it into F tier. The main weapon totally stops anything the kit is trying to do. The Twinkle's Splat Doulies come with Fizzy Bomb and Big Bubbler. Big Bubbler has some unique tech with Doulies specifically being able to use it to cancel the end lag. Fizzy Bomb can work as a mini curling like it does with end parry, but also help paint and get your special. This is an amazing kit. I wasn't sure we were going to be able to top V Doulie. However, I think this one is really nice if you have a different crab option. And given the popularity of stuff like V-Splash or options like the new Dreadringer, I think it is totally possible that you'd want this to be your bubble weapon, especially in dive-centric comps that Doulie thrives in. In other words, while the kit is technically slightly weaker than the vanilla Doulie one, I think it specializes in filling a lot better the type of comps Doulie wants to play, as well as being exceptionally good synergy-wise with the main weapon. Because of that, I'll put it on the same tier as the vanilla Doulies into S+. I think this is going to make it a lot easier to run the comps this weapon wants to see, and players should definitely invest into this kit. The Planet's Big Swig Roller comes with Torp and Triple Splashdown. Like how I talked about with Reflux last time, Torp works very well for this weapon, allowing it to combo for a faster kill, particularly with the horizontal flick, and giving you more to do if you get a unique angle. However, I just can't say I'm a big fan of Triple Splashdown. Sometimes it has some objective use cases, but realistically the main plus sub should be good enough at keeping you safe if you invest and practice this weapon. It needed a special that did something else, and unfortunately there just isn't a whole lot of utility here, so I don't really see it seeing much success. Definitely better than the other big swigs, but I struggle to see where this fits in a team comp. I'll put it into C tier. The Glitter's L3 Nozzle Nose comes with Splat Bomb and Inkjet. This weapon definitely can get a lot of Inkjets, run the gear for them, and honestly just kills off Anarchy Nova in terms of seeing uses, which is totally fine with me, frankly. The real question for this weapon to me, though, is how worth it is Inkjet in today's meta, and the answer is still, I don't think it's that worth it even with the special power-up you can invest. I'm also a bit unsure about the quality of the main weapon given the limited amount of success L3D has seen, despite the fact that that kit is actually pretty solid right now, and Burst Bomb is definitely better for it than Splat Bomb. Personally, the main weapon just isn't really thriving as much, and Inkjet still has a lot of problems, so I'm going to put it into B. I can see it seeing some niche use cases, but overall I have a lot of uncertainty about its success. Definitely a cool kit though. Comets Octopus, on the other hand, with Autobomb and Kraken, is definitely a step up from the vanilla Octobrush. Zipcaster has some situations where it's more useful, but I think the bomb's extra location utility, cheaper cost, and a special that actually lets you end in a good location is extremely good for this weapon. It definitely plays closer to Ink Brush than normal Octobrush's playstyle, since the Kraken really encourages you to get far behind enemy lines, but I think it works incredibly well. I'll put this into A. Between stuff like Octobrush Tri and Luna, I think this might be the best one out of all of them. Skipping the bow real quick, and I'm sorry Sheldon, but you're not right here. Unfortunately, the Star's Dynamo Roller does not have a kit with no real weaknesses. Point Sensor and Killer Whale has some location synergy, and Whale occasionally helps when the weapon just doesn't do enough damage, but for the most part this is a sub and special that don't really serve to help the main weapon with its mobility in any way, since neither of them could put paint under you. This is extremely important for Dynamo, and even if you want to talk about the special's utility of a quick ink tank refill, frankly, the other two do them a lot better, one of which having a literal tactical cooler, and the other one also providing a high paint output to help the weapon in that area, which is just another attribute where this kit doesn't help you, the paint output. I'm gonna put it into D tier. I think that there is almost no reason to pick this over the other ones, unless if you're dealing with a sharking opponent and are a one-trick Dynamo player. Last up is the Bulbs Tri-Stringer with Angle Shooter and Inkjet. This might be my personal favorite kit of this entire thing. I never thought Bow would actually have some potential to be used here, but this one is really giving it a shot. The chip damage and location utility from the Tri-Stringer and Line Marker honestly gives you a lot of ways to set up your Inkjet, having more synergy than I think Ballpoint does. You can't defend your landing as well, but you still have a lot of utility. I also don't really mind Line Marker on this weapon. Given that Tri-Stringer will very often have people around 60 to 90 damage, there is a lot of use cases where Line Marker will be the only way you can secure a kill or extra damage. Honestly, this might even top Rapid as the best Line Marker weapon. Don't get me wrong, the sub is still bad, but I think the use cases for it tend to line up really well with Tri-Stringer. The insane amount of kit synergy this has really gives it a lot of potential. Is that enough to allow Tri-Stringer to work in an era with a lot of pencils and options that counter Inkjet? I'm not sure, but for now, I'm gonna give it a solid B tier, which is in my solo viable category. I really hope we see this weapon pushed. I'm very interested to see what you can do with a comp built around this weapon. And that's the Emberz weapons ranked. Unfortunately, I know this is going to be a bit of a sour answer for people, but in terms of which brand does better, I honestly think it's about a tie. I think that Barazushi tends to have more kits where both the pieces are good, but Emberz tends to have the overall more solid lineup. That being said, it's really even, so even that is barely different. Ultimately, I really enjoyed the third kits they've added in these updates, and I think they are very good. Thank you guys so much for watching. Later down the line, I'll do a larger review on what third kits mean for the series when we get more time. I will see you all later.